Welcome, everyone. This is a humorous history podcast, and we are the Goofy Historians. Today, we're going to talk about the People's Crusade and some of the characters that were involved in the People's Crusade. Now, this was like a precursor or Crusade 0.5. It was kind of a warm-up for the first Crusade, but it's an interesting tale. It might have some relevance to today. We'll find out. But there was a couple characters that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Peter the Hermit, who is the crazy character. He was born in 1050, but we don't know when he died. He may be still alive. We're going to talk about a couple popes, Pope Urban and Pope Clement, I think. And these guys were actually throwing rocks at each other at one point. And my favorite character is the Byzantine Emperor Alexis. He was very pragmatic. And as the tale unfolds, you'll see he probably coined the phrase, "Be careful what you ask for." But we can jump right in. 1095 is when it all starts, right? How did they get 100,000 peasants together? That's crazy. They just put down their plows and followed the calling.
That's the question, right? How do you get 100,000 people in the Middle Ages to pick up and try to walk to the Holy Land? I mean, what were they thinking?
Well, you know what I was thinking? They probably hated their job. They
probably hated their jobs, right? So that's the question. Obviously, they were caught up in religious fervor. They thought it was the end of the world. They felt that this Peter the Hermit actually had gone to a pilgrimage, and I guess took a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and I guess they treated him bad or something in Jerusalem. They let him in to see the sights, but he was smelling and stinky, and the Muslims didn't show him any respect.
If he's a hermit, why is he not being a hermit-like kind of guy?
Yeah, I don't know why they called himself a hermit. He's not a very good hermit. He was like a rabble rouser.
He was the opposite of a hermit.
He was the opposite of a hermit. Yeah. I guess he gave up his hermithood after his little escapade in Jerusalem. But Jesus appears to him in Jerusalem.
Oh shit!
I mean, not as a vision, right? As a human, right? And apparently, it's been 1,000 years, but his scars have never healed, right? He's still like bleeding from his hands and his head. You know, Jesus, right?
Does he have the beard? Does he look like the pictures that we see, like a white guy with a beard? Oh wait! Yeah. I gotta jump in here. This is the funniest thing that I've ever heard. And it's probably not, they said that lady said it, Marjorie or whatever, the QAnon lady, but what the quote was.
Marjorie Green or something? Yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene?
She probably didn't say this. It's fake news, but the line is, if English was good enough for Jesus, it ought to be good enough for us. That's so funny. That's so funny on a couple of different levels, right? Yeah, actually, I don't know. The English at the time of Jesus, they were speaking whatever like Boudica's ancestors were speaking. It wasn't English.
It wasn't English. Yeah, English hadn't come around for a long time. Yeah, that's what. That's so funny. That's how they convicted Joan of Arc. Remember, they said they arrested. They go, well, if Mother Mary spoke to you, what language did you speak in? And she says, well, she spoke French. I mean, that's why that's the only language I speak. And they go, well, no, Jesus and Mary speak Latin. So that proves you're a witch, right? I mean, not Greek, right? Or Arabic or Aramaic.
Aramaic. That's the language that he would have spoke.
So they're supposed to be speaking Latin. So she got burnt as a witch. But anyways, so Jesus does appear to him, and he says, take and Jesus actually gives him a letter, a certificate signed by Jesus, right? Like a little form saying,
No shit.
yeah, this is famous, right? And he
Okay.
gets this letter from Jesus, and it's signed by Jesus, and he takes it back to the Pope or something. He's supposed to go back to the Pope and say, you got to come back and kill the Muslims, and then I'm going to come back, right? I'm going to come back in glory, and that's going to
He's the
be.
one who started that whole thing?
He even started it before Urban did. He was like back in 1092 or something. He went down there. So he's already, I mean, did he really have a vision of Jesus? No, that's bullshit, right? And Jesus isn't going to give you a certificate,
Why not?
right? He'd do like a miracle, you know? Oh, one other thing. You know the still off topic, but the MAGA hats, right?
Yeah.
MAGA in Latin means magical, right?
Well,
So
sure.
these are like magical hats, right? That's why I think it's some type of trick of the liberals to turn these people into heathens, because Christians don't believe in magic, right? They believe in miracles. It's not clear what the
Right.
difference is,
All
but
right. So all
all
these
these, so these are
peasants
all magical
gotta
hats they're
go
wearing.
2,000 miles. All right. So we got 100,000 peasants together.
So
And
he
off they
goes up
go. 2,000 miles they gotta go? That's a long
2,000
way.
miles.
Did they have horses?
No. Well,
They
they had a
walked?
few nights. They couldn't have horses. They weren't allowed to have horses. You know,
Holy shit. It
I
must
mean,
have
all they
taken
could have is
forever.
like Pintos, and maybe a Versa. They couldn't drive the good stuff. And then,
How can
so
you
no, they
walk
had to walk.
2,000 miles? I
They
don't
they, they
even
had
get it.
donkeys to. They had donkeys they had donkeys. They could ride donkeys, and they could they had
Well, they weren't
crack.
encumbered by a supply line.
They weren't in trouble by because these people. So, anyways, let's get back a second. So Peter the Hermit was actually on this before Urban the Second, right? Who's in Rome, right? He gets a request from Alexis. So Alexis, who's the Byzantium emperor, just gets the shit beat out of him by the Seljuk Turks, right? Which are not, which are Islam, but they're not the Fatima Turks who are
Right.
living in Holy Land right now. The Fatima Turks have been in there for the past 500 years, right?
Yeah.
And they've conquered their lands. They did their jihad thing like 500 years ago.
And
Now
let's point out right now that it was perfectly fine for the Christians to go on their pilgrimage to the Holy Lands already. That's why Peter was there. They
that's why Peter was
weren't
there.
okay. They weren't like destroying any of the Christian stuff, and the Christians could go there.
No, yeah, that
Why?
was the lie. They were
Why did
telling
they
them
need?
lies.
Oh yeah, because there was a pizza parlor or something. Anyway,
Right. That was like the QAnon thing. They just kept lying and lying and lying to these peasants in Europe, saying that the Muslims were killing babies, right? And they were raping the women, and they were going to tear down the 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 Church of the Nativity. I mean, a lot
okay,
of people don't
I
realize.
don't disagree with you, right? I don't disagree with you, but I just want to do the Louis C.K. rebuttal here, because what if you die and you do see Jesus and he looks just like the dude in the picture and he speaks English? Then what are you going to do? You're going to be
Well,
like, oh
he's probably.
shit, which way to hell, right? You won't even, yeah. It's
That's
like, don't
true
even
with.
bother, because otherwise they're going to play back that roll of film and you're like, well, I'm not sure about that part. No, so you want to just skip it. Just like, which way to hell? There's a demon there I got to have sex with. Okay, just go. All right. So where
So
are
I
the
mean,
peasants now? Where are they?
well, first let me get back to it. This is you got to get this story straight. So Alexis has just been up by the Celtic Turks, who are just been converted to Islam, right? So they're like fanatics. They're like any newly converted people, and they still have like warrior in their blood. Again, the Fatimids, their concept of jihad at this point is a spiritual jihad, right? They're like a jihad is internal, right? They don't, it's like we don't do
So
physical jihad anymore.
so
So
Alexis, the Byzantine emperor, needs help. against
needs
those
help.
dudes.
So, and he's asked for help before from the Normans, right? Remember Normans?
Yeah, but
from
now the
Normandy?
Normans are fighting him.
Yeah. So they're like all over Europe, and like every few years, Alexis calls up and says, we need 5,000 knights. Can you come help us, right? But at this point, the Normans are actually fighting. Besides being
Byzantines.
attacked, yeah, they're attacking. They're attacking Alexis, in the north, while the Seljuks are attacking him from the south. And he goes, well, I can't ask the Normans to stop fighting me in the north to come down and fight the Seljuks. So he goes to the Pope and he says, Pope, I need 5,000 well-trained, wealthy, cultured knights to go down and fight the Turks, and just get them to back off. And by the way, also talk to the Normans who were supposedly report to you to back off too. So that's the whole story. So now Urban wants to get a crusade going, but he doesn't want to just take care of the Seljuk Turks. He wants to go down and all the way and take Jerusalem. So he wants to go down to Jerusalem too, because he sort of thinks it's the end of the world too. And if it's not, it'd be really good for him. Because right now there's actually, like you said, there's 2 popes living in the Vatican.
Oh, let's talk about 2 popes. So that's so crazy. Could you imagine that? Talk about 2 cooks in the kitchen. So you have 2 popes, Urban and Clement.
Clement III, Clement II. It was Urban II. Maybe it's Clement III.
And right. So there's a story of he's in the rafters while the other dude is in the trying to give a sermon, and he's like throwing shit.
Throwing rocks at him.
Ridiculous.
I can imagine. So yeah, so like that's why none of the Germans went on the crusade for the first crusade. I mean, they went on the second crusade and the third crusade, but they never went on the first crusade because the Henry IV had excommunicated Urban's predecessor, right, and set up this Clement guy with his army, his physical army. He went down and conquered Rome, inserted his pope into the Vatican, this Clement guy who was just a patsy. It was like they called him Pope Blockhead. It's like he just does everything Henry IV tells him to do, right?
And like Gregory, go on the rafters and throw little rocks.
The rafters. This is before the St. Peter's, right? This is still the old church, right? So there's rafters up there. And it's
that would have been funny if he fell.
It would have been funny if he fell.
Man, he's like giving a sermon, and the other pope falls out of the freaking rafters.
Pope's falling from the ceiling.
Oh shit!
All right.
And then there were Viking raids. It was just a mess, like you said. It was
and so he obviously. So when Gregory died, the one that got excommunicated from Henry IV, the cardinals elect this new guy, Urban. But the Clement never moves out, and he's got the main castle, right? So Urban gets elected, but he's like stuck in this little tower out back, right? So he gets to go in and say mass once in a while, but he has to watch for rocks from the ceiling. And then Urban excommunicates the King of France, right? Because of some marriage thing going on.
And France is a mess. France is fighting
France
England.
is a mess, right? And the Normans had just taken over England, right? William the Conqueror had just taken over England like 30 years ago.
That bastard.
So he's not getting involved. So, but so the only place that Urban can reach is southern France, and that's where he goes on this evangelical tour and starts trying to recruit Raymond of Toulouse, who thinks, and they get they're going on the crusade, but they plan, right? They have all these backroom meetings about what's going to happen, how are they going to get there, how much money they're going to need. They have to have like castle sitting programs, right? Because they're going to leave, and they have these castles and lands to take care of. So they're called, but they're like making a plan. But in the meantime. And the Pope sets a date for August 15th, right? That's when you're going to meet like in the Vatican, and we're all going to go together, and we're going to go up, take care of the Turks in Byzantium, and then go down and take the Holy Land. because if the Pope can pull this off, right, he's going to bring the Eastern and Western churches back together again.
Oh
He's going to
shit.
get
Awesome.
he's going to get Jerusalem back. He's going to have an army that he's going to go up and take care of the Holy Roman Empire and excommunicate his ass again, throw him out. And then what's this poor little guy in King Francis going to do? He's going to have to take his excommunication seriously, because he excommunicated like 10 years ago and he's just like blowing the whole thing off. So, because right now is when it started, Urban couldn't even go into Rome without getting killed.
How does he want to take Jerusalem? We can't even get into Rome.
I know, you think like Urban, you can't even get into Rome. Maybe take care of that first. But it was like he's going to start outside and then build up his support and come in. It's going to solve. So for Urban, it was political, right? I don't know about Jesus in the end of times. It was political. He wanted to get his power base. If he could even do half of that, right? He could probably get out of the tower and into the main Vatican palace, kick out the other guy, and throw stones down on him.
Well, they say military, like even like in modern military, you need 25 people to put one guy in combat.
Oh yeah, and that's even. I mean,
so back then,
like for every pilot, there's probably 1,000 people.
Right. So it took them a while. Meanwhile, where are these peasants?
So these 1,000 parents,
they're on their way now.
So Peter the Hermit goes up and he's preaching. He's telling he's got this certified holy letter from Jesus, signed by Jesus, and everybody believes it. And at this time, remember, this is again near the turn of the millennium, right? So there's a lot of religious fervor going on, and it just so happens, while they're planning, while Peter's talking, the moon turns blood red, right?
Oh,
and then
right.
and then it starts glowing, right? There's like this aurora around the moon, and then there's an ellipse. And then there's like this, what do you call it when the stars fall? A meteor shower is coming.
Yeah.
The stars are falling from heaven.
Perfect timing.
The sun's tuning. And then there was an ellipse, and there was plagues, and there was wars, and there's 2 popes in the Vatican. I mean,
if
that's not the end of time, right? What is, right?
Right.
And so these people.
It was an easy sell, actually, for Peter.
It was a pretty easy sell, right? This has got to be it. I want to be, and Jesus has to come back to Jerusalem, right? And he can't come back. And also, I mean, they're not only going to take Jerusalem, they're going to take Syria, obviously, Lebanon, but they're also going to take Egypt, because apparently it's kind of confusing, because Jesus can't come back till the Antichrist has the battle of Armageddon and overthrows the Christian kings of Egypt, Jerusalem, and Syria. So,
all right, that's pretty complex. Here's
the Christian king of Egypt, unless they have a Christian king of Egypt.
Here's what I took away from it. Okay, so Peter the Hermit crab and this whole beta crusade with his 100,000 peasants. So they were on the loop of doom, as I like to say. It was an endless loop. It was a doom, doom, doom. And on the way, well, Jews. Okay, it's always the Jews. You got to have a scapegoat. So the Jews were holding up the end of times, because what had to happen was everybody had to convert. So if the Jews didn't convert, they had to kill them. So thousands of, like 10,000 Jews had to die, but it was okay because they were going to get 1,000 years of peace. That's what this whole millennium thing was.
Yeah, they had to get the millennium, and they had to kill the Jews.
It was okay. It was okay because they were able to murder with impunity because they had taken up the cross. So it didn't matter what they did on the way, they still get to go to heaven. That's such a dangerously scary thing, right?
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, this was actually the first mass massacre of Jews in Christian history was this, when they started out in Cologne, and some of the other cities. I forget the name of the cities. I mean, they did it at several different cities. And I mean, up to 10 to 40, I mean, there wasn't good records, but up to 10 to 40,000 Jews got killed. And this is men, women, babies. They killed babies. It's like, and the Jews didn't convert. I mean, they always had the option.
What? Yeah, I
They
would have
always had
been
the
like,
option of converting.
because these people are gone. They're not going to stay there and enforce their. I would
Yeah, I
just
know.
like, yeah, you crazy person, I'll convert to whatever. That's
Yeah, I mean,
awful. That's terrible. So they've killed
but
all these Jews.
I mean, this isn't. Remember, at this time, France had like 5 million people in it. Only 100,000 went. That's like 2% of the population. That's like the same percent of the population that died of COVID, right? So this was like the COVID of the Middle Ages, right? And but the bishops and some of the Christians in these lands they went through actually tried to stop them from killing the Jews, right?
That's right.
They
So
actually
some of the Catholic
closed the
or
gates. They
Christian,
actually
right?
got their army out, were trying to protect them. But these guys were rabid, right? They were like pissed off that we got to get Jesus. If we don't kill these Jews, Jesus is not going to come, right?
That, and I think
It's
they
like
were probably
Jesus could have
hung.
killed him himself, right? I mean, Jesus is freaking God. If he wanted to get rid of the Jews, he could have got rid of the Jews, right? But
Well, they were
Jesus
awful,
wanted them to
but
do it with the sword.
I think they were also hungry. You know how you get when you're hungry, you get angry, it's hangry. That they were mostly just hangry. So after they killed a bunch of Jews, they ended up killing a lot of Christians too. They hardly ever get to see a Muslim, but they ended up
Yeah,
killing more Christians than they did Jews.
right. So after they killed the Jews in Germany, or from I guess they started in Cologne. I don't know why they started there, but they killed the massacre of because there were Jews in Germany at that time. There were no Jews in Hungary, for goodness sake. But they after they left Western Europe, they had to go through Eastern Europe, which is like Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, and these people they've been converted to Christianity, but either been converted to Eastern Orthodox, or if they're Catholic, they've been Catholic for like only within the last generation, right? So they're like kind of new at this Catholic stuff, right? And they're sort of looking up that to France and England, and as representations of what Christianity should be. So they're going, oh, okay, like we've got all these Christians coming through, and Hungary at that time, to get a concept, they only had 400,000 people in their whole country, and now they're going to be hosting 100,000 hungry, pissed off, and they had no campsites, right? These people are going to piss and shit their way. 100,000 people are going to piss and shit their way through Hungary, right, with no food, because technically, at that time in the Middle Ages, people were starting to go on pilgrimage, and the rule is, if you're on a pilgrimage, wherever you go, people are supposed to take care of you, right? So, like, if you go on El Camino to Santiago now, right? If you do the walk, there's little places all along the way where people are going to feed you and give you soup and a beer and a place to sleep, right? And a place to take a shower and take a shit. Then you go to the next one. So the Hungarians expected that, said, yeah, we'll like, but they weren't expecting 100,000, right? They can't, it overwhelmed. It was an economic and ecological disaster, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't they didn't like 100,000 at once, because it wasn't only Peter the Hermit. There was these other guys like Enrico, who was like, he was the worst of the bunch. He thought he was Jesus, right? That he thought he was Jesus going to on his way to Jerusalem, and he was going to do strath of destruction all the way to Jerusalem. And then he got to Jerusalem, that was going to be the end of the world. He was going to set himself up as king of the world. But the first, Peter actually was the best, and he was like a prophet. He was a preacher. He was out of his head. He may have been a con man with the letter from Jesus, but he actually turned out to be a pretty good administrator. He sent first he actually had some knights, but the knight was William the Penniless, who's going to lead his like little crusade, right? It's like,
well, of course, because it's the People's Crusade.
I mean, like all the real good knights were going with the real crusade, right? But he got William the Penniless, and like another 50 knights to go first, and the Hungarians go, well, that's cool. This is what we expect. Maybe, 50 knights, 100 foot soldiers, and 1,000 pilgrims, right? And the foot soldiers are there to keep the pilgrims in line, to keep them from burning and pillaging and taking cows and women along the way. But unfortunately, at one point they get to this border town between Hungary and Belgium, and the knights were trying to get some weapons on a border town. That just sounds like a bad scenario, like, weapons trading at a border of two countries. And it went wrong. It was a deal that went wrong, and they ended up fighting, and then the peasants escaped and were catching cows and sheep and stuff. Anyways, it turns out that these knights got surrounded by the Bulgarians, and they hid in a church, and the Bulgarians burnt the church down, right? Which was like, oh my God, this is not what you want to do, right? So this was, it wasn't that bad, but burning the knights in a church, and they're both Catholic, right? And so
how far are they away from a Muslim at this point?
They're like at least
still like 1,000 miles to
Muslim,
go,
right? So one of them escaped. They get back to the main thing of Peter and his horde, which is like almost 40,000 people coming, right? So the Hungary guy, I forgot his name, the king of Hungary, I have it written down somewhere, but he thinks that's it, right? That 2,000. I took care.
I got this.
Oh my God, there's another 40,000 coming down. So he comes up and he meets them, right? And he says, okay, you have free passage through my country, but just keep them together. You can't go out and take our cattle. You can't take our land. You can't take our women. You just got to stay in your group and get through get this barbaric tribe to sort of escort them. And they actually did. For the first couple of weeks, they did pretty well. But they get to the same spot of this border between.
Wait, hold up. So they have pagan barbarians escorting the Christians right, through Christian land. Okay.
But I guess the idea was if he had to go to war with the Christians, it was better to have the pilgrims. I mean, the barbarians kill them than the Christians kill Christians.
Sure, why not?
But it didn't work out because the Hungarians and the pilgrims go. So the Christians need supplies. They need food. They need water. Because they think God has called them. So they've made no plans about what they're going to eat, what they're going to drink, what they're going to wear, how they're going to fight the Muslims. It was all in God's hand. They just had to show up. So the Hungarians are like, we can't treat you as regular pilgrims because there's too many of you, and besides you have this army with you, right? You're not pilgrims, you're on a crusade. So they started dealing with them it says, you can buy food, but if you take our food, we're going to need money because we're going to go have to buy food for ourselves, right? So this is sort of a deal. You can get through, and then we'll have money, we can go, we won't starve. But they didn't take it well because they thought everything was supposed to be free because they're on a pilgrimage. And the Hungarians and the Bulgarians send out their army. There's a big battle, and Peter gets up on this hill and he calls his horn, and
Peter the Hermit has a horn.
Yeah, because there's a battle going on.
He's a horn.
He's trying to
I got
you. He's trying to call all his Christians together, right?
Well, they're freaking dogs. Come on. All right. So can we get past this to the Byzantine? Because they finally make it.
No, I'll go through it quick, right? Finally, a third of Peter's group gets destroyed in this battle, right? And he takes over this city, and he chops off people's arms and throws them in the river so other Hungarians will see these arms floating down the river. But they finally escort him to Byzantium. But there's three other groups of 15 to 20,000 that are coming down. So now the third group comes down. They get halfway, and this time the Hungarians are just like fed up, right? They send a note to the Pope and say, these people are not Christian, right? I don't know what they're doing here, but they're not Christian, and we're going to treat them as heathen invaders, right? And the Pope goes, the Pope didn't call these people. He called the Crusade, the Knights. So the Pope's going,
whatever.
I don't know who they are. Don't
know them. It's like, don't know them. Don't know who they are.
I don't know who they are. So the Second Crusade comes and they see these Muslims approaching them in an armed army. I mean, and they look at the Hungarians and they see a sign that there's this cloud in the sky that sort of looks like a cross. It could have looked like a bird, could have looked like a plant, but for them it was a cross pointing back to Europe. Right? And then they hear this, and there was like, and so they go, well, I think Jesus wants us to go home. So they actually turn around and they left.
Good move. That was a good move,
right? And
because I want to get to the part where the
story, because they actually came out of this
them.
alive, right? Which is not many. They were the only ones who lived. The fourth one comes around, and they approach the army again, and this is the saddest one because they say, so they're dying of thirst, they're dying of, they have no food. They says, put down your swords, right? Put down your weapons, knights, give up your horse, give us all your gold. You can come into the city and we'll feed and water you and send you on your way back to Europe, right? They did that. They went into the city and the Hungarians killed every one of them. Slaughtered them. 15,000 Christians they killed, because at this time the Hungarians are just pissed off, right?
Yeah.
And the last one was the guy who thought he was Jesus. He was going to come down, and these people are just cutthroats. One of the guys is called William the Carpenter, because he likes to saw people in half, right?
No way. Really? His name was the Carpenter? Yeah, you don't want to piss off the Hungarians. It doesn't matter if you're Christians or what the hell. Because they're always used to having shit happen all the time. They got it on all sides.
But yeah, these are the ancestors of Attila the Hun, right? And they're like going, we are like trying to be Christian, but
like screw it, kill them.
So these people come in, and this was a weird one because they're going to fight the Hungarians because they actually believe they're Jesus, right? So
oh no.
They're actually beating the Hungarians because these guys are professional. They're the most professional warriors of the bunch. But it's not clear what happened, because even though they were retreating, it must have been a trap, and they all got destroyed. And what was left ran back to Europe. And so they were destroyed to a man, except for William the Carpenter actually survived and went and joined the regular crusade.
So there you go. Because they could always use a good carpenter. All right. So how many of them get into Muslim territory?
Right. So what happens is Peter the Hermit, who was like, after you hear about these other people after him, like William the Carpenter and them, and these other people, you go, well, maybe Peter's not that bad. So he gets escorted sort of by the barbarians. They get to Byzantium or Constantinople, right, which is right outside. You cross the strait and you're in the Middle East, right? This is like
Constantinople, modern day
Constantinople
Istanbul,
is right on the border between East and West, right? Yeah. So if you go across that bridge, I did that. You go across that bridge and you can stand in one spot on the bridge, and one half of you is in the Middle East and the other half of you is in Europe.
Yeah.
So they're that close, right? So Peter is there. They started 100,000 and now they're down to 10,000. So that's
pretty good.
90,000 Christians are killed.
Yeah, that's always going to happen.
Yeah, it's called breakage, right?
Yeah, breakage. So they got 10,000, but still, they should have waited.
Right, but they're like dirty. They're like, they haven't taken a bath ever since they left Cologne.
2,000 miles.
And Alexius and the Byzantiums, the people are really, really rich and really, really sophisticated, and they're not letting these people in the walls of their city. They
No
said,
way.
you're not coming in,
Not
you're
our
not coming
clean
in.
ass city.
And so they're sitting outside the walls of the city, and they're causing havoc, right, with
The surrounding
the
area.
locals, right? The
Yeah.
locals, they're like just going, taking
Who are
people's,
Christians, by the way?
who are Christians. They were, yeah. So it wasn't good, but still, Alexa supposedly told them. So the other Christians of the first crusade were supposed to leave August 15th, but like Richard the Lionheart, August 15th went into, like August, September, October. They had to get their castle sitters set up, and they had to get money. They had to plan, because these people were planning, right? They had a military.
They had 25 people for every night.
Right.
Okay,
they were
so
going,
anyway,
yeah, we believe in Jesus, but we believe in our sword first, right? So they were not going to go cross into the Middle East without being prepared. So they're like months away. They're like months away from joining up in Constantinople. And Peter's sitting there with all his hordes, and they're going, well, let's go kill Muslim. This is why we're here. We killed Hungarians. We killed Bulgarians
and Jews.
And Jews, right? We've killed everybody. Obviously, we can take on some Muslims, right? And we're like the cream of the crop. And Alexis is going, you don't understand. You do not understand. These are the Seljuk Turks who beat our best army, right?
But have a go at it anyway.
Right. So they're insisting, and I don't think, probably Alexis didn't spend really a lot of time trying to convince them to wait, because I think he wanted to get rid of them, right? This is not, like you said,
they needed
to ask for.
They needed to get off of the doom loop, and what they did, they went straight to heaven, and that's what happened.
Because finally Alexis goes, you guys want to go fight the Turks, right? Who am I to say no? You're the one with the letter from Jesus, right?
Yeah, that's true. It was notarized.
It's notarized. It's a notarized letter from Jesus. And so he gets the boats, because it's not a little body of water. It looks small on the map, the world map, but it's a pretty big body of water. You're not going to go across there without help. And these people had no plan, right? They didn't come with boats, or tickets or anything, right? They have no money. So Alexis, but Alexis does tell them, because when you get over there, go directly to the coast. Go to the coast, hang out on the coast, go down the coast, because if you need help, we can rescue you, right? If Jesus doesn't show up, God forbid.
If in case,
just in case.
on that off chance.
But you're in Muslim land, you go over there. So they go, but of course he sends them over there, and there's this little town. It's not Nicaea. Well, they're trying to get to Nicaea, where they had the Nicene Creed, which has been taken over by the Islamic forces. But there's this little town on the way, and unfortunately they get to this town, and they go in there, and there is some poor little Muslims who are just leading their life, right? They're like, they have like crops, and they have goats and sheep and family. These are not soldiers. These are just regular people. And of course, for these people, that's like what we came for, right? So they come into this town, they take it, they kill every woman, every child, every man, old man, eats their goats and eats their sheep, and and if that, they have no army, they have nothing to. And so obviously what happens is the Islamic forces hear of this, and they come down. You wouldn't even call it a battle, right? I think they tried to put up some defense, but they just destroyed them. And that was the end of, no one knows what happened to that certified letter.
Oh, but shit. That was the end. They should have kept the certified letter.
They should have showed it to them. They go, look, I got a certified letter. You guys are not supposed to kill us. But, well, actually, That's yeah. So they get wiped out as soon as they cross over the phosphorus into the Near East. They don't. They're still 800 miles from Jerusalem, but at least they've seen Muslims, right? They never got against kill one. They just got killed by them. And well, they didn't. Well, they did slaughter these innocents, but you know they never got to fight a Muslim soldier. But it's funny, Peter the Hermit wasn't there. He was
Yeah,
still,
he was in
which is pretty
Constantinople,
suspicious. I think he was
right?
embarrassed by the whole thing
He's
too. He
like,
goes, "This is
nope,
not.
not going. These guys,
I'm
nope.
taking, I'm taking my letter of Jesus, and I'm going to stay in Constantinople." Supposedly, he was in Constantinople trying to get supplies. Right? He was
Sure.
saying, I'm going to go get some supplies. But that makes no sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
God was supposed to supply them. They were going to live off the land. So then,
So,
you know, three months later, the first crusade shows up and says, "Oh, whatever happened to Peter?"
oh, and then Peter joins the first crusade.
Oh, Peter joins them along
Yeah,
with
yeah.
William the carpenter.
All
So
right. I didn't know about William the Carpenter. That's pretty cool. So that's great. We talked about Peter the Hermit, talked about the popes, talked about Alexis, who I do think is probably the most pragmatic character. And the Byzantine Empire stayed in Christian hands, but it didn't stay in Christian hands forever. It's called
no, but it
Istanbul
stayed
now.
for another 400 years in Christian. So he never needed the Christians, man. That was his
Yeah.
biggest mistake.
The
He should have just
Byzantians were cool. I always loved those guys, man. They were like
the who?
the Rome, the Byzantine Empire and all that, because they
Yeah.
were the Rome. They called themselves Roman. they were never went to Rome, but they
Yeah.
were like the old Roman Empire. Is so cool. So I'm glad
Yeah,
we
they thought they were. Yeah, they didn't call themselves Byzantiums. They call themselves the Roman Empire. They thought they were Romans, which was crazy, right? They weren't Romans,
right, but
right?
they were very Romanesque, and I think that yeah, I mean, I think that we told the story of the People's Crusade, and it's an important story to tell. Maybe it has relevance to today, maybe it doesn't. You can always leave a comment that we'll probably ignore. And we're going to have some great podcasts going forward. We're going to do the Zulu War, where they beat up on the British Empire, and then we're going to do Hannibal and his elephants. So be sure and hit subscribe, and we'll
Leave a
talk to
comment.
you. Leave a comment. We'll talk to you real soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.